now, here are your hosts, Janet Hickox and Roger Wetzel.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Empower You. I'm your host, Janet Hickox, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Bryn Morgan.
Hi.
And Roger Wetzel, who is muted again for some reason. Oh, hello. And we are sitting here this afternoon with our guest, Michelle Burns. Hello, Michelle, and
Hi.
welcome to Empower You.
Thank you for having me.
We're excited to have you here because we have been working on the idea of health and healing and the body. And last week we had Larry Berkelhammer on the show. He has written a book about the mind and health, or mindfulness and health. And one of the things that I think every one of us is aware of is how the whether or not we love ourselves has a lot to do with our own personal health. And so we were really excited when Roger said he knew somebody that did this topic. And
Excellent.
so we're really excited about that. So Roger, are you ready to introduce Michelle?
Technical difficulties.
Are you?
Hold on.
Okay.
You don't want to cut to Roger right now. Oh, there he is.
I see him. We have two of you, Roger. Are you a twin? Are you a clone?
I am.
Hey, but now your computer's working and we see you in living color.
Yeah, but can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And we can see you still doubled.
All right.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about self-love.
Hold on, I'm trying to get myself off my phone. That would be good.
What'll be good? But you're wearing a different shirt in that picture. How is that? How can that be?
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Good.
All right. Can you hear us and you see everybody?
Yeah, I was having technical difficulty because I was on my phone and logged into you guys so I was logged in twice.
I know.
Yeah.
So I'm here now.
Technical.
And I don't know how I got two different shirts on.
Doesn't it look like it, girls? His picture in his phone, he looks like he's wearing dark blue. In this picture, he's wearing lighter blue. Maybe the same.
Right, enough already.
We can pick on you. You're the only guy today.
Fine, I can handle it.
All right. Now that Biggie's laughing at us in the background, so can we carry on now and have you introduce our lovely guest, Michelle Burns, today?
I would love to, yes. Michelle and I met, not that long ago, about 7 or 8 weeks ago, through a online class we were doing through MIT and Otto Scharmer called Theory. It was based on his book Theory U. Anyway, Michelle joined a coaching group, and I joined a coaching group, and we had no idea who was going to be in it, and so here we are today. And through the process of conversation, it's come out that we have some commonalities in things that we want to create. And Michelle's is creating self-love and a program for self-love. And I thought that would be a really ideal show because I think that that's something that's sorely lacking in this world. Mm-hmm. So I would like to basically just turn it over to Michelle and just ask her the first question, which is, first of all, welcome, and why do you think self-love is so important?
Thank you, Roger. So what I would like to do, I think, because, it's such a big topic, just to create a little bit of context, I'll explain why, first of all, why it's so important, and then I'll talk a little bit about the self, and then I'll give my definition of self-love, and then we can have a discussion about the topic, a lively discussion. So I think it's really important right now, and this is why I've kind of decided to focus in on the topic of self-love, is that I work with people one-on-one as a transformational life coach and as a yoga teacher, and I'm noticing that, people are really struggling right now. There's various different levels of struggle. So there's people that, on the extreme end, there's people who are in really deep emotional pain and physical pain. They're stressed and burnt out. They're overwhelmed. They're overworked. They're feeling disconnected. There's anxiety and depression and addiction are epidemic. And this deep internal conflict that people have with themselves is leading to problems in relationships and problems in their personal lives. And then there's people who are actually in transition, and they're, they may already be on a growth path and they're making changes in their life, but they're really looking for ways to kind of navigate the transition. And then there's people who are just really feeling stuck. And people are looking for solutions. They're looking for answers. They're looking for, they really are looking for answers and solutions for the challenges they're facing in their own lives. And collectively, we need to find creative solutions for challenges that we're facing on the planet right now. So bigger problems like politically, economically, socially, and ecologically, we're in need of transformation and in need of a new direction. And that's why I think the conversation is so important right now, because what goes on with all of us individually does have an impact on what goes on collectively. And as people learn how to access their own deep inner resources and their own inner knowing, and to really learn how to honor and appreciate and respect themselves at that level, then that affects what happens collectively as well.
So that's awesome. And I think that, you look at the world and what's going on, and we've talked about this before. It's like it's insane what's happening. We're making ourselves insane. So given that, what's your definition of self-love?
So the other side of that story, and I will go to that definition in a second, but I'm really noticing there's a deep longing and a real hunger for more meaning, for more purpose, for community, connecting, for people wanting to know what realize more of their potential. And people are really sort of waking up to, wanting to grow into more of who they are. And so this moment of disruption and all this pain that's being created right now, and the pain that people are feeling really is a gateway to people opening up to connecting with their deeper self. And when they can connect with that and really honor it, is the beginning of self-love. But what I want to say about it, people are actually the disconnect. They're feeling that disconnect. They're really disconnected from their deep inner knowing, and that's what's causing most of the pain right now. Is a disconnection from their essential self and their authentic self. So, in terms of self-love, my definition, you hear people say it. The words being kind of tossed around a lot right now, that people are saying things like, you just need to love yourself more. And if you just loved yourself more, that wouldn't have happened. Or you need to love yourself before you can love somebody else. And so I'm seeing it a lot, actually. People are talking about self-love, but it's at a very superficial level. And, when I'm asking, people who are actually saying it, when I'm asking them to describe to me what self-love means, they give me a very surface level definition. And, they'll say things like, well, and I know one time in particular when I was in a really challenging place, people would say, well, you just need to, be kind to yourself and pamper yourself, or do something nice for yourself, buy yourself something, go out for dinner, whatever. And they were talking about, definitely those things will make us feel better. But for somebody who's really disconnected from their authentic self, and they're not in a place of self-love, those actions are not necessarily going to bring them to a place of self-love. It will make them feel better. But someone who is operating from a place of self-love would be more inclined to treat themselves that way to begin with. Like that's, you know, if we're really in a place of self-love. So the definition that I have, you know, I know one time when I was in a particularly dark place and I was looking for answers and I just couldn't get this self-love thing. And people kept saying it to me, you just need to love yourself more. And I was really struggling to figure out what that meant. Mm-hmm. And I stumbled upon, I was reading a book. I'm very interested in yoga, and I was reading a book, and there was a quote in there by this yoga master. And the quote was, love not anyone, not even God. Our picking and choosing love brings misery. Instead, let God love you. Be love itself. And it was in that moment that I really got it, that, you know, that this isn't something that I can do specifically unless I connect first. So in the moment that I read that quote, I sat down and I just thought, oh, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to sit here and I'm just going to open up and just really just set that intention and let God love me. And I really felt everything shift in that moment. And I felt something moving through me. Like when I opened up, I could feel something moving through me. And then I knew that this is it. It's the connection with our own, with that divine within us, with the deeper inner knowing in our spirit, that, you know, goodness, truth, and beauty are actually seeking expression through us. And when we allow ourselves to be still enough and quiet enough, and we can allow this to move through us, and it's our intuition, it's our creative intelligence, it's our passion, it's, you know, the alignment with our purpose, then that's, you know, the connection with our most authentic self. And then I'll take the definition of self-love a little further to that self-love, it grows through actions that really support our greatest good. So when I allow myself to know, I mean, it's really getting to know yourself at that level. Like, what is most important to me? What are my deepest core values? What is it that would really allow me to thrive? What is my purpose? What are my gifts? And then self-love grows in from actions that really support that support my greatest good, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And by actions that lead me in the direction of my highest future potential. So there was another quote that I found that I really appreciate, and I've had this passage in front of me for many years now. And this is by Martha Graham. And she says, there is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all of time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost. And the world will not have it. And it's not your business to determine how good it is, nor how valuable it is, or to compare it to other expressions. It is your business to keep it yours clearly and directly, and keep the channel open.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that, and, you know, so if we can connect with that and keep the channel open and just know that there is something very unique that's coming through each and every one of us, and then to consistently connect with that and allow it to guide us and inform all of our decisions and actions, then we're constantly aligned with our deepest self. And then it's up to us to take the actions that will serve our highest good and lead us to our highest future potential.
I think you answered that pretty well.
Just like that.
Just like that. You know, I think one of the things before the show today, I was doing some writing and preparation for some videos that I'm working on, and one of the things that hit me was the movie The Secret. Right. And you and I have talked about this a little bit, about the superficiality of things. Right. And if you remember the movie The Secret, there was some really great information in there, but at the same time, it made it seem like it was so easy that it became so superficial. Like if you just sit down and visualize checks coming to you, then in the next month, the checks are going to start rolling in. Yeah. And I think, you know, as you were talking, one of the things that I was thinking about is, you you know, I'm really big on words, and one of these words that's so friggin' charged is the word love.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that with kind of what you were talking about and the definition that you gave, hopefully, number one, moves that beyond the superficial level. But I also think that there's the need to overcome our belief and our understanding and even our definition of what we think love is, to get to the point where we can start looking at what self-love means to us.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I appreciate you bringing up that point too, because, you know, one of the things is that this is not easy. And as we know, you know, Roger, I know you and I have had this conversation too about being on this path of growth. Like we've been on it, we've been doing this work for 20 plus years. And, you know, of course it certainly has its, you know, it's an unfolding, it's a never, you know, we're always going to be growing and opening up and letting go, moving away from some things and moving toward things. And there's no quick way of making it happen. You know, it's just, we have to be committed to, you know, when people get committed to when they get committed to aligning with their authentic self and start moving away from the programming and conditioning. I mean, I'll just say a little bit about the programming and conditioning, and I'll show you something about about what we're talking about. I often show people this pie. You know, scientists have, can you see that?
There you go.
This is show and tell.
Yeah.
So this pie. So you know, scientists have been long been saying that we're using less than 10% of our potential. So you know, the blue part of the pie, which is about 90%, that, you know, that might represent our authentic self. And the green part of the pie, the 10%, is our self-image. And this is, we're actually operating from our self-image most of the time, which is actually disconnected from our most authentic self, right? So the disconnect, what actually happens, you know, each one of us, when we're born actually knowing that we are loved and that we do belong. And those two things are so important to all of us to know, for love and belonging, right? Mm-hmm. But if the moment that we you know, most of us have had, you know, parents that weren't really connected with their authentic self. So as children, they couldn't really be with us in a way that encouraged and nurtured our authentic self. So that a disconnect often happened for most of us early in life, where we had to start competing for love, or we had to start behaving in ways in order to be accepted and loved. And so the disconnect happens at a very young age. If there's trauma, if there's abuse, if there's neglect, if there's unconditional love, which there is for the most part, we actually are disconnected from our sense of worth and our the knowing that we are loved and that we belong. And this idea about the worth, because the 90% of the pie, the big blue part, is really our worth, which you can't destroy and you can't get rid of. But what happens is, when we get disconnected from it, is that we start trying to prove our worth. And children start to compete, and they start to do things to get attention, to, you know, if I do this, then I get positive feedback. If I do this. So we start creating this self-image, and we start behaving in ways that are going to get some positive feedback. And even if our parents were, you know, I have a lot of my clients now are saying, well, I had this idyllic childhood and my parents were wonderful and they did all the right things. And, you know, even if that was true, the thing that happens is that then we send our children to school, and they're taught to, you know, they're learning about right and wrong and good and bad, and about being evaluated and graded. And, you know, they're getting report cards, and they, you know, with every test, they're having to prove their worth and demonstrate their worth. So they're feeling like there's something wrong with me. Always. Like there's, you know, I'm not good enough. I don't measure up. I'm not like the rest of them. I don't fit in. So then we start to create this, that's how the self-image begins to get created, is that we want to do things to fit in now. We want to do things so we measure up. You know, we're being taught to conform, be like everybody else. And this disconnect from ourselves, we just keep getting further away and further away and further away. And then the further we get away, the more pain we feel. So this is, you know, anxiety and depression and fear and this sense of, you know, not feeling good enough, not feeling valuable enough. And then we start to, you know, even as adults, we start seeking, instead of connecting with our inner self and with the big blue part of the pie for our worth and our real power, we start looking outside ourselves.